The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And the show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Herron. Welcome to the show, everybody. I've got two people who've been here at least once each, and it's my pleasure to introduce them tonight. We've got a creative thinker with a passion for things that go bang, creative director for Athlon Outdoors, Ken Ross. Welcome back.
Hey, great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Next up, we've got Air Force veteran, licensed clinical social worker working with veterans with serious mental illnesses, Lisa Edwards. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you both here. I know I used and abused Lisa last time she was here because I had all kinds of questions about mental health and things like that because, you know, obviously I am of poor mental health. So I was trying to get the free therapy, but this time I promise it'll be all about the news.
That's why I'm here, Sean. You told me I could get therapy from her.
No, you can.
Dang it, giving out free therapy. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, you can. I can't. Before we get started, guys, just want to talk about our advertisers. Patriot Patch Company. Go to patriotpatch.co. I've actually gotten a few patches in the mail lately. It's a sickness, and I'm fully willing to admit it. But if you like collecting patches, if you have the same sickness I do, or you just like cool t-shirts, gun-related cool stuff, cleaning mats, all that, Patriot Patch Company has what you need. Patch of the Month Club was, you know, since the ATF and all that good stuff, they had the AR-15 with the little floaties on it because we always talk about losing our guns in the river or lake or whatever it happens to be. And then, I got the one that was the, Uncle Sam in a space outfit, a space suit, and it says, I want you for the Space Force. So great patches there. Also our good friends over at Manticore Arms, and if you don't know what they make comfort products for the guns that you already have. So if you have a Scorpion Evo, most people who have those know that they're pretty uncomfortable out of the box, and Manticore Arms makes a bunch of parts that make them easier and more comfortable to hold. But one of my favorite things is the transformer rail for your AR-15. They also have them for the Scorpion Evo and AKs and all kinds of stuff. It allows you to have Keymod, M-Lock, Picatinny, anything that you want, all on the same rail. Pretty handy. ManticoreArms.com. Coupon code is TWG10. And guys, let's get into it. Legally armed bystander shoots armed suspect at Florida back to school event. So I don't know if it's just really hot in Florida and that makes everyone just a little bit silly, but this was at a park and it was a back to school event and it was billed as a, you know, back to school, no violence event. Well, someone got into a fist fight with somebody, went away, came back and opened fire. The interesting part here is that there was someone there, a legal concealed carrier, who was able to take out his firearm and shoot the assailant and ending the attack. It doesn't say what the status of the assailant is, but he was shot in the head and it could have been much, much worse. Apparently 12 shots were traded and the concealed carrier did everything right and by the book as far as I can tell. I think this is a great example of someone who concealed carries using their firearm for righteous cause. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. And luckily he was there. And that he had a concealed carry, because what if he didn't? Then he'd be getting in trouble for doing something to help other people.
Yeah, and like a number of people that we've covered on This Week in Guns, at least he didn't have to run to his car and get it.
Yes.
It sounds like he acted decisively and he took good shots because sounds like there were kids all over the place and or bystanders all over the place, so that could have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it was at a park. There's kids everywhere. There's actually video of when the shooting happened, not specifically the shooting, but people's reaction to it. And this, you know, good guy with a gun. I hate that platitude, but in this case, it is absolutely true.
Agreed.
So, all right, good news there coming out of Florida. Normally, it's like all about the Florida man. This was a good Florida man. Adam Kraut, highlighted as a gun-fundamentalist, pressures the NRA from within. This comes to us from UK or Reuters UK. Which I think is kind of interesting. It basically positions people who are into guns, people like Adam Kraut, John Patton, the Gun Collective, Tim Harmson from Military Arms Channel, positions us in this field as fundamentalists, fundamentalist gun owners, things like that. It's not necessarily an article that I would call complimentary, but when I read it and they try to use that fundamentalist slam on us, I really feel like I wear that as a badge of honor. Absolutely. Too much. They talk a little bit about the NRA and how they're not doing enough. And, I'm kind of open and down with that message. They mentioned Marion Hammer and how she called Adam Kraut the enemy within, so on and so forth. It's a big, huge thing, but I kind of like the fundamentalist nomenclature that they're using there. Ken, thoughts?
I like the nomenclature, and I agree. I read the entire article, and I thought that it went back and forth a little bit. It portrayed Adam initially as, being someone who they might consider giving in to being reasonable, as they would say, on gun rights. But then later in the article, it actually talks about, how Tim and Adam want to stand pat on where we are, or even get more gun freedoms. So, I think it's the article's a little choppy, but it's an interesting article. Yeah, it's funny how late it is.
Yeah, I agree. It talks a lot about the board of directors election that happened at May at the NRA annual meetings in Dallas.
But anytime they put Marianne on blast for her antics, I always find it entertaining. So
I do too. And they even mentioned the article ends with a quote by Neil Knox, whose father was part of the revolt in 77, the NRA revolt in 77 that Hammer was a part of as well. Lisa, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Ken said. It was a very interesting article. I like that they coined something that we can use in a positive way, just like the other, what is it, death by printing or something?
Yep.
And the other one. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Fundamentalist. I'm gonna buy a t-shirt as soon as I see one.
Yeah, for sure.
Next story, Georgia dad holds naked child molester at gunpoint until police arrive. So, guy's attending a church event to feed the homeless, and there's this guy comes over with, just wearing his underwear, approaches him, stripped down, tried to expose himself. He asked him to leave several times. Later on, he came back naked, ran directly up to the kids, and other kids, and appeared to be grabbing himself. So he, drew his firearm after the guy would not leave and held him there until the cops did show up. Lisa, thoughts on this?
I mean, can you imagine having your kids? I don't know if you have kids, but I do. Having some guy just expose himself over and over again. It didn't just happen once. It happened several times. I can't imagine. I don't know.
I'm 100% with you. It's kind of crazy, and it happened, and it went over and over. Now, Ken, I always like to talk about, how the gun is never the first option. It's really the final option when you have no doubt that there's going to be, fear or risk of bodily injury or death. And it doesn't appear that he used it as this. Like, it went on and on and on and on until he felt like the only option to stop this person from perpetrating whatever it was against his kids, against the other kids there. And then he did it. What are your thoughts on kind of that whole thing?
Well, yeah, it's funny you brought that up, because as I read this, I was very uncomfortable. If it were one of my students, I would have been very uncomfortable with the whole interaction. This is one of those times when, I talk a lot about this at the end of my classes about alternative methods. So, the firearm is the last resort. So what goes in between there? Being able to leave the scene, or a less than lethal. If you have a pepper spray in your pocket, or a taser in your pocket, is that when you use that? Because there are a lot of ways this could have gone horribly wrong. The guy was running away from him. He's pointing a gun at him. If it goes off, then it is a case of him shooting a guy in the back or shooting a guy that's fleeing. We like to look, there's kids involved, and we look at this and we say, yay for this guy for protecting the kids. This could have been a good swift kick in the solution. This could have been a pepper spray solution. This could have been a leave the scene solution. There are a lot of ways you could have gotten out of this other than using your firearm. Now, honestly, I wasn't there. I'm not going to say, had I been this guy, I wouldn't have shot him earlier. I don't know. But, I do, looking at it, it's always that reasonable man thing. What would the reasonable man do? And I could see a lot of reasonable people saying there are some other alternatives to what he did.
Yeah, man, I could not agree more. Very, very well put. And it is tough. Like, you want this to stop. You want it to stop being around your kids, the kids that are around there. But ultimately, I mean, were they at risk of serious bodily harm or death? And, just from reading this, it's impossible to tell. So that is the thing that I definitely want people to take away from this, is that, yes, we carry our firearms for those things, but there are definitely a lot of gray areas for us as concealed carriers. And this is definitely one of those. It does appear like the cop had his firearm towards the guy who was holding the streaker or whatever at gunpoint. The guy gets up and runs away and jumps in the river. They did capture him and arrest him, but he did run. So what if that had happened a few minutes before the police got there and the guy was shot? I mean, it's the end of his life as he knows it.
He sounds like a candidate for Lisa's couch. So
exactly.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking.
All right. So from the corruption files over at guns.com, we've got New York SAFE Act sponsor sentenced to 7 years on federal corruption charges. Now, this really doesn't have anything to do with anything. And yes, I get that politicians on both sides are often corrupt, but this is a guy who was a key figure in the adoption of sweeping gun control laws in New York, otherwise known as the New York SAFE Act. And now he's been found guilty of corruption. He made millions off private schemes conducted in part through his public office. Came after a retrial of his first conviction was overturned in an appeals court. And it looks like he took $4 million in bribes, as well as pocketing another $1 million through money laundering the proceeds. Politicians are generally corrupt. I don't want to have a blanket statement saying that they all are, but ignorance on both sides of the aisle. And this corruption, it truly is annoying, especially when they're the ones who are putting in place such, just draconian and drastic gun control measures. Lisa, thoughts on this?
Especially since the North seems to have the most strict gun laws, to see that they're actually doing it for selfish reasons and making millions. It wasn't just a little bit of money. It was $4 or $5 million.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, we obviously have the big players in gun control, which I'm drawing a blank on. Starts with a B. What is it, Ken? Who's the guy, the big gun control guy in New York?
Wow.
I know, I'm totally drawing a blank.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank also.
Which is actually good, because I'm glad that we don't remember his name. But anyway, I mean, I wonder, for these politicians that push through this sweeping gun control legislation, are they taking money from the people who are pushing this? Obviously, there's a lot of money pushing for gun control. And are they, Bloomberg. Thank you, Izzy. Bloomberg is the one I was trying to think of. But, did that kind of thing go on? I would have to say probably yes.
Well, and the sad thing is we know what's going on both sides. This isn't, like you said, you don't want to throw out a blanket statement, but if you're in a service industry and you're making that much money, how? Yeah. And most of them walk away with, set for life. Where are they getting this money from? Book deals? I don't think so. Yeah. So it's dirty anyway. Most politicians are lawyers. Sorry, Adam. So it is what it is. And I think we do need to take that with a grain of salt, though. We need to pay attention to it. And I always call it the Svengali syndrome, when politicians get up and they start talking. What are they doing with their other hand?
Yeah. Totally. So I will say there's definitely probably some of that stuff going on. I don't want to cast fingers when I obviously have no real clue, but man, it's a little bit odd. Now, in the Fall from Grace files, we have Matt Burkett pleads guilty to wire fraud for undelivered guns. So he's a well-known competitive shooter, cable personality. You may know him from Predator Tactical. They kind of made a little bit of a big splash, and then they were bought actually by a company that I knew called Industry Armament. And I did actually reach out for comment from the guy who owns Industry Armament, and he did not get back to me. So no comment from that side. But basically, Predator Tactical was a gun company. They were bought up by Industry Armament. Well, what happened is Matt Burkett went to SHOT Show, sold people on a ton of custom pistols. It was a custom 1911 line of pistols, and basically never delivered on those. Looked like he defrauded this specific gun dealer of $50,000, never delivered. He also did some 3-gun ready shotguns from Predator Tactical that I know there was some drama with as well. Kind of a big deal. He was on 3 seasons of History Channel's Top Shot. He was on NBC Sports Network's 3-Gun Nation. And did a lot of shooting, inspired a lot of people. Not sure how much good he did in the industry, but seemed to be a positive role model. And whatever seems to have happened, he is now pleaded guilty to wire fraud. Thoughts on that, Ken?
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like he may have fallen into some addiction and gone down to the wrong path in a couple of ways. And it's too bad. You hate to see people's lives fall apart like that. It's easy to throw rocks from outside, but it's unfortunate that he did that. And you have to pay a price. You have to pay for your crimes when you do something wrong, right, Sean?
Definitely do. Lisa?
From a competitor's standpoint, I just think that it's really saddening because it is making a big difference. I just recently was at a competition in Gadsden and they were talking about it. And what happens with the prize tables at this point, that's part of the draw. But whenever these gun companies are shipping out these guns for competitors to win, who are putting in a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and then to find out $50,000 worth of merchandise, that's not a little bit. That's a lot of stuff that's not getting to the people who you promised it to. It's unfortunate. So.
Yeah, I remember talking to the guys from IA Industry Armament at SHOT Show, and they were really excited about the Predator tactical shotgun and the Night Shrike pistol, which is the one in question here. And yeah, I mean, he sold them. He got the money for them and just never delivered. So yeah, tough situation. Definitely a fall from grace for someone who's well known in the competitive shooting field and, tough situation all around. This next one I find extremely, extremely interesting. Illegal immigrant charged with gun possession cites Heller and claims the Second Amendment as his defense. So what he did is he borrowed a gun and fired it in the air to scare away a rival gang in 2016. He is an illegal immigrant. His lawyer argues the framers were clear. If they meant citizens, they would have said citizens. There's no suggestion that there was a concept of illegal alien and no suggestion that if you were from a foreign country, you couldn't bear arms. The prosecution says just that because the ruling says it's preemptively lawful to prevent mentally unstable people or felons from possessing guns, but doesn't say the same thing for illegal immigrants, that the Second Amendment, that's what his lawyer says. The prosecution argues that the state has a legitimate interest in preventing gun ownership for those who are difficult to track with no permanent address and who may have an interest in evading law enforcement. This is a very interesting one to me because I am very much kind of a two issue voter. Illegal immigration, I think, is a really big deal in this country and has far cascading effects that affect more than just, crime and other things. But at the same time, they're right. The Second Amendment doesn't specifically say citizens. So I think it's a tough one. Lisa, thoughts on this?
What a loophole. You don't even think about it, but that's definitely a loophole to jump through. And it makes me wonder what will be changed. Will there be an addendum or, and if you open that up, what other addendums are we going to make? But I don't know. If you cannot track a gun, that's dangerous. I mean, obviously there are other things going on with tracking weapons and getting into the wrong hands, but it's a huge issue whenever somebody who has a mental illness gets a weapon. So what do you do?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. And I will say that he's actually lost this case already multiple times. 3 circuit courts have rejected similar arguments in other cases, and 2 federal appeals courts have upheld the statute by saying it has a reasonable public safety goals. So, Ken, what are your thoughts here?
Well, it is one of those cases where I would want to be on the jury because that would be so interesting to be sitting in that courtroom and hear the arguments on all sides. If you think back to when the Second Amendment was put in place, everybody was an illegal.
Right.
So they couldn't say, they really did. Everybody was pretty much an illegal. They were voting people over constantly. Yeah. So I guess they shouldn't have said that. Yeah. That one's hard. I mean, he broke several laws, New York laws. I mean, he's going to jail for something.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just, what is he going to jail for? And, he might even want to think about running.
Perhaps. So here's the thing is that we always hear the argument from anti-gun people and they say, well, the Second Amendment meant this and didn't mean this. It was made in a time where there was muskets and and things like that. And we're like, no, it didn't specify muskets. It was military grade weapons of the time. And we say that over and over and over again. But now I think as gun owners and Second Amendment advocates, if we were to come out and say, well, it didn't say illegal immigrants, but I think it shouldn't count for illegal immigrants, that we would be hypocrites, because we say, that it didn't define what the actual weapons were that the militia could arm themselves with. So yeah, I think that I've got to say illegal immigrant or whatnot, but I will say that public safety is a genuine concern. That is going to win the day and has multiple times. There's definitely precedent set, but this was an interesting thought experiment for me, at least.
His lawyer is creative. You got to give him that.
Definitely creative. I was all, wait, is Johnny Cochran still alive?
No, he's not, but that could be his son.
If the amendment does not fit, you must acquit. All right, good stuff. Next up from guns.com, Eddie Eagle program hits all-time high in July. And Eddie Eagle, for those that don't know, is the NRA, the National Rifle Association's Child Gun Safety Program. It's an interesting little program. I think it's good. It teaches kids to don't touch, run away, stop, don't touch, run away, tell a grown-up. And it's, just like the 4 rules that we teach everybody in NRA gun safety classes. This is the one for children, and looks like it's had a huge spike. Ken, why do you think that is?
Well, I think that people are becoming more aware of needing to educate their children about firearm safety. Yeah, they are discovering that their neighbors have firearms. They are discovering that firearms are in a lot of places that they didn't know they were before. And they're saying they're starting to tell their kids, and it's what it should be. We teach our kids through fire drills. We teach our kids about tornado drills. We show them how to put out grease fires as they get older. We show them where the fire extinguisher is in the home, or where to go during a tornado drill. These are all things, we teach them about stranger danger. We teach them all of these things. So why not teach them how to protect themselves and their friends around firearms? It makes a lot of sense.
Definitely. Lisa, are you familiar with this program?
I was not familiar with the program, but I did find it interesting that there was a little blurb in there that said, we are not trying to sell guns. I completely agree that this is something that we should be teaching our children, so that way they don't end up shooting someone on accident and having to live with that forever. It's kind of like Smokey Bear. We're not telling you to go start a fire. We're telling you what to do in case of a fire. So yeah, I absolutely agree that it's something that needs to continue spreading.
Yeah. And I mean, what you're mentioning there is they say actually neither Eddie nor any members of his wing team are ever shown touching a firearm. And there's no promotion of firearm ownership or use. The NRA does not make any sort of profit off the program, nor does it intend to, because people would accuse them of trying to indoctrinate kids with guns. But I think we'll save that for Sacha Baron Cohen in Who is America with his Uzi corn and whatnot. We'll save that for him.
Wow, yeah. How sad that we have to actually say, we're not doing this for this purpose.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So I agree with both of you. I think that this is a good thing. I think that people are interested in it. And education and, taking away the mystery of firearms, helping people understand the operation, the mechanism, and getting them familiar with them, whether they want to shoot them, whether they want to own them or not. Everyone should be familiar. Most people know how to drive a car, even if they decide not to drive, or they live in New York and don't drive at all. And it's, it removes a lot of the fear, because it removes the fear of the unknown that people have. So great thing. Glad to see it's up, and hope to see even more of it. Moving into some not so positive news. In Chicago over the weekend, 74 shot, 11 killed. Staggering numbers, most of it gang related. Wow. There's lots of numbers and statistics and things like that, but most of it gang related. Tons of people dying. Ken, what the hell's going on in Chicago?
It's Chicago. You talk about gun crime or gun violence, and that's where it comes from. It comes from inner city gun violence. Happens with gangs. It happens with drug crimes. It happens and when it gets hot, people get crazy. It has been hot in the Midwest, and people just freak out. That's one of the positive things about winter is those numbers drop quite a bit. If we get rid of guns, if we start banning guns, we're all going to go turn in our guns because we're law-abiding citizens. Really, I will. But the criminals will not turn in their guns, and these things will keep happening, and these numbers will go higher because now we're sitting ducks and they know it, and they'll come and they'll do all kinds of horrible things. So Chicago's a great example of how gun control does not work.
Thoughts, Lisa?
Absolutely. Illinois is one of those states that you kind of don't want to drive through with a gun because you don't know if you're going to get arrested. And, I go out there sometimes and to compete, and I have probably 1,000 ammo in my, 1,000 rounds in my trunk. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to get pulled over. But, it's kind of like Mexico, like what Ken was saying, they have no guns. They don't have access to their own guns, but yet how many people are getting shot there? In Chicago, they have really strict laws, yet look, 77 in 2 days?
Yeah,
2 days?
74 people shot, 11 die in Chicago.
Yeah, in 2 days. Mm-hmm. And look at their gun laws.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So I always look at this. I try to look at it like, okay, let's take away all the guns in Illinois. And what does this weekend change? Who perpetrated this violence? Gang members. Why do gang members perpetrate violence against each other? Whether it's for respect, whether it's for theft, whether it's for, comeuppance, whatever it happens to be. Are these things going to disappear? Are those things going to stop just because there's no firearms available? No, because they'll get firearms because they're already breaking the law, because they're gang members, because they're selling drugs, they're running guns, they're doing whatever it is that they do to make money there. And those things are not going to stop just because, the tool that they use to perpetrate violence on each other goes away. They're going to use cars. They're going to use knives. They're going to use fire, whatever it happens to be. They're going to use it. And the answer isn't taking away guns. The answer is figuring out why the crime is being committed. I've seen some good organizations where people are going into these neighborhoods and teaching conflict avoidance, things like that. Monterey is a big part of that. I've seen some other ones as well. And that, I think, does more good than banning a gun ever will, because you're going in, you're looking at the root of the problem, and you're trying to figure out where to go from there.
Yeah, Sean, you make a great point there. Right? It's not just conflict resolution. It's seriously looking at what the problem is. It's just as it is with the school shootings. It's not too many guns are causing our kids to be killed in schools. Something's wrong with our children that we need to address. Yeah, and something's wrong with our inner cities that we need to address. Gang violence, gangs are happening because they make money. It's all about money. Yeah. Why are they making money from it? How are they making money from it? Why do they feel like they need to make their money that way? These are the questions that need answered, but these are hard questions. They're not going to be answered by politics. Saying it's the guns is easy.
Yeah. I mean, in England, they take away the guns. That didn't fix their violent crime problem. People were getting stabbed. Now they've taken away the knives. Again, not going to fix the violent crime problem. Just in a debate earlier today, in fact, that because I mentioned that London has a higher homicide rate than New York City does for the first time in history over the last few months. Now, in 2017, New York City had a higher homicide rate, but it is definitely trending higher. And London, multiple months recently, has had a higher homicide rate than New York City. Taking away the tool doesn't fix the underlying problem. And until we figure out ways to do that, I don't think we're ever going to make any progress here whatsoever.
Amen.
Next story, Swedish police kill man with Down syndrome carrying a toy gun. It's sad, and it happened in Sweden, so a lot of us don't really care, but this is the kind of thing that happens. And this is one of those things where the officers, they were put into a situation where they had somebody, and that somebody looked like they had a weapon that could be used to murder the officers. Plain and simple, they have to react in that situation. They can't sit there and ask 20 questions. The second that toy gun gets pointed anywhere near those officers, they have to react. Yeah, the person had Down syndrome. Yes, I'm sure he was one of the sweetest people alive. I've known lots of Down syndrome people, and they are amazing, but officers have to do what they have to do, and they cannot second guess because those second guesses kill them. Thoughts on this whole story and maybe what I just talked about, Lisa?
I agree. You don't know the situation unless you're there. You don't know what's going through their minds. What did the weapon actually look like? And there are very realistic looking toys, especially, and people who don't know mental health. How do you know? There's certain things that a lot of people who have autism, you can see that, But if you don't know, you're not trained to see those things, how do you react to that? And there are, at least in America, we have crisis intervention teams where we're working with police departments to try to say, okay, this is something, if someone is anxious or if they're having a panic attack can also look like an aggressor. It depends on how if you're in mental health, you're going to look at it completely different than if you're in law enforcement. So you can't just read something and say, oh, well, I wouldn't have shot him because, he was autistic. Well, obviously the police officer just seen a guy and a gun, and they took the appropriate action.
Thoughts, Ken?
Unfortunately, it's a really sad situation, but it's hard to criticize law enforcement. They have to be so many things in our communities. They walk onto a scene and they come in late and they have to figure out what's going on in a very short period of time and then escalating a situation and escalating encounter. And, they have to make a decision, a life or death decision. And that's really difficult. It's easy to sit back and armchair quarterback and say, I would have done this, or, you can recognize this or you can recognize that in a Down syndrome person, but it's life or death. And those guys are thinking, I got to get home to my family. I got to go home and take care of my family tonight. And I'm not going to catch a bullet on a humble.
Yeah. And I would find it very difficult for me to ever say, no, the cops should, take that extra second where their life hangs in the balance. I would never force someone to go to a job where if they were faced with the worst that society has to offer 90% of the time, that they can't take the action they need to get home to their family. I just can't see a time where I ever say, nope, you need to go do that. Sometimes innocent people will die, and that's just a fact of life, and it sucks, and that's just the way it is, though. All right, next story. This is an interesting one. Alabama woman kills abusive husband in her driveway, gets arrested despite stand your ground laws. So she had a protective order against him, meaning she had what they call a restraining order. And he had apparently hit her before, had that, but had chosen at times not to have the officers enforce that. So what I read from that is that she had the restraining order, but didn't always call the police if the guy broke it. Well, they were standing in the driveway. She used her firearm. He died in the yard. She called it self-defense. They said so far, no, they have actually issued the warrant for her. And even though Alabama is a stand your ground state, it hasn't been mentioned yet in this case. So obviously her attorney is going to say that. He's going to push for that. But it's kind of interesting that she's going to go through all of this before the court date ever even gets there. Thoughts, Ken?
Second call defense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is the case that it's invented for.
Yeah, this is going to be expensive for her. This is going to be her. It sounds like her life has already been a nightmare. It sounds like she's reached several forks in the road and she keeps turning the wrong way. And this sounds like another instance of that where, her unfortunate decisions have left her in a position where she's going to have an expensive, and she better hire a good lawyer because this could go really bad for her. It sounds like, she was battered. It sounds like she was abused. It sounds like she finally reached a point where she thought she needed to defend herself. That's what it sounds like according to the story. And from her previous actions, it looks like they looked at her and said, yeah, maybe not. So
very tough. Lisa.
It kind of reminds me of the guy who breaks into your house and then somehow sues you. How does that happen?
Yes.
But it does happen. And now there's even insurances just in case somebody sues you because they robbed your house. It's just.
Without question.
Yeah, it's really, it's an unfortunate case. I don't know the whole situation, and hopefully it'll unfold and justice will be served. But
would you say, just based on what you've seen in your career, that when there's things like this and there are these protective orders, are you familiar with any of these kind of situations? Have you seen any in your career?
Talking to you, Lisa, not me. My career is now.
Sorry, yeah.
I don't know what your career is.
I'm a creative guy. I draw stuff.
I've seen a lot of things, unfortunately. People who who have to go through this and have to say that this really did happen. With law enforcement now, at least we have cameras. So they have proof. But if you're standing there and you're a domestic violence victim, the only proof, if you do decide to take action and call the police, is that documentation. That's it. You know, I don't know. Hopefully somebody who was outside says something if she was getting battered at that time. Unfortunately, if you are in poverty, a lot of times they don't want to talk to cops. They don't trust cops. So it's unfortunate the things that happen sometimes.
Yeah. Lisa, have you seen domestic violence stuff in your career?
Well, not in mental health. I was in law enforcement for a while in the military, and then I worked in 911 for 2 years. So in those circumstances, yes. And unfortunately, you get people who have dependent personalities. So they put them in jail, and then they go visit them in jail, you know, and it's an never-ending cycle. So hopefully they do get the help that they need.
And the cycle has definitely ended for this couple.
Yeah, I experienced in my limited experience on it is just personal. You know, watching relatives and the way that they get into huge blowouts with their family, and then end up, you know, and you have to be careful as a relative because, you know, you go over and you beat the guy up, and then they're over there with him, you know, a week later saying, "No, we worked it out." Yeah, and now she's fine, and you're the one that the guy hates because you kicked his butt. Yeah. So
yeah.
Those situations are really hard. And, I feel bad for her because it sounds like she's been going through it for a while. Definitely.
All right. Next story. No motive found in Las Vegas massacre. Las Vegas Police Department closes the case. So the scumbag who shot a bunch of people in Las Vegas at the festival, now the case is closed. No answers. And I constantly say we know more about pretty much every other thing that goes on than we do about that Las Vegas shooting. And now even less is there. No more answers. We're going to not ever know anything, I don't think. Lisa, what are your thoughts on that whole situation?
You know, there's so much footage for that. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm very thankful I wasn't there because, you know, one person says there's one shooter. You see other things that look like there were more than one shooter. I don't know. I think that I'm confused why it's a closed case.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts on this, Ken?
Yeah, this is one guy, sounded like he had a limited number of friends, a girlfriend that he sent away. You know, we're talking about trying to get into someone's head who's not here anymore and figure out what he was doing. And I don't think he had a logical explanation for what he was doing. It was, once again, there's another candidate for you, Lisa, that to be sitting on your couch. Yeah, I think that he had some issues that we will never fully understand.
My thoughts on this are, this is the scariest type of thing for me because when we have people commit mass killings and things like that, usually there's a fairly well documented path to insanity for them, or not insanity, a path to murder for them. And that path will show grievances, that path will show religious things, that path will usually show some semblance of why they perpetrate these atrocities, whatever it happens to be. The ones that really scare me are the ones that just come out of nowhere. No one knows why he did it. There was a lot of planning that went on with this. I mean, he planned and planned and planned and planned and finally took action. He looked at other venues. He looked at other places. He even booked hotels in another state at another festival because that could have been the one, but this is the one he picked. And just the fact that there's no answer, that there's no explanation of his evil, this is the kind of thing that actually scares me and keeps me up at night, is just the evil perpetrated for no apparent reason.
Agreed.
All right. Gun sales in July fell to lowest July since 2014. Guns.com actually did a decent job in this article. They've got a graph and they have the total and the adjusted on this. And the reason I say that is because so often NICS checks is not a great way to figure out how many guns are being sold because certain states run their concealed carry permit database through NICS once a month or quarterly, or buy annually and things like that. And that really escalates those numbers and really pushes those numbers up. So they've tried to take those things out based on what they know, what states they know do that. And they've put in these adjusted numbers, and those don't look much better. So it appears, based on NICS checks at this point, that gun sales are down. I've reached out to a few friends in the firearms industry, and it does seem like everyone's down a bit, although it seems like training companies are doing a bit better. But I think in general, it's a tough time. Now, summer historically is a very tough time for firearms sales, accessory sales, firearms training, and all those different things, just because kids are out of school. Money's tighter because people are going on vacations and things like that. Do you think, Ken, that this is that it's a bigger problem, or is it just kind of a slump based on what we've seen historically?
Well, first I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you advertise in our publications and on our website, that could help your sales, gun companies. All right.
There you go.
But yeah, I think we're measuring it. Yeah, they always do year over year, and they're measuring it compared to the Obama years and then Trump coming in. And those were historic numbers that we hit. Those were historic peaks, and it's going to go down. You know, I worked in the automotive industry for a long time, and it would always amaze me how they would say, you know, we're heading into a slump, but really all we're doing is evening out. Yeah, we're going back to a norm, and that's what I think we're doing. You know, it's time for the industry to shake itself out. We're not going to hit those highs like we did before, and we're going to hit a normal pace of sales until something happens again. Yeah.
Lisa, any thoughts on do you know people, you obviously compete and stuff like that. So have you talked to any shooters about this?
I buy guns a lot.
Exactly. Like you're in it. Like what are the people saying?
Go ahead. I think everyone I know is still buying guns. But you know, that's what I'm surrounded by. I do agree that right now it's summer, so people are out enjoying time with their family. It's not hunting season right now, so who knows? I think that maybe doing an overall year instead of just 1 month might help out a little bit, but I do agree with Ken that you can't go by a record high and say, well, now we're low.
Yeah, I agree, and that's been a criticism that I level against these kind of stories all the time. But this one, comparing July's from 2014 to 2018, definitely shows that we're down. 2016 was that peak, and we're down from that, obviously, but we're even down from 2014. So
that's a good point. Yeah. Well, we're supposedly doing really well. Everybody's making money, you know, according to the economy. So, like you said, it's summertime. People are spending money on different things. They're traveling. Yeah. And they can't find the guns because Lisa's buying them all.
I was going to say, look, guys, Lisa cannot do this by herself. We got to help.
That's right. Help me out here.
I don't know this next story. I don't know if you guys saw this, but video shows LAPD killing knife-wielding felon and his hostage. So there's a guy, he's a felon, he's got a knife. Lady walks out, looks like she has a walker in the video. The cops are like literally right there. The lady just wrong place, wrong time. Guy grabs her, puts the knife to her throat, grabs the blade with his other hand so it's up against her throat, and the cops decide that this is the time when they take him out. Unfortunately, they shoot and kill the hostage as well. And man, this is a terrible, terrible, horrible video that to watch, but it's just kind of, I don't know. It's bad. Lisa, what do you think?
I think anytime a hostage is lost, it's not a good time, you know, but again, you can't say what is going on in anybody's head if you're not there. You can't say, I would have done this, because you probably wouldn't have. That's a crisis situation. So it's just whatever is going through their mind at that time.
Yeah, very tough. Ken?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Taking that shot under pressure is very difficult. You know, you can second guess it all day, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they did what they felt they needed to do at that time. I don't even know what do you even do in that situation? You know,
yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, the police were literally within 15 feet of this guy with the knife. They're standing right there. We all want to think, well, I'm a better shot than that. I could, shoot him right in the face and he'd drop the knife and she'd be fine and we'd go home and celebrate. But I just don't think that's the real world. And again, did the cops end up killing the lady? Yeah. But can we live in a world where cops are expected to make these decisions faster than anything or anybody and always make the right one. No, I don't think we can live in a world like that. So there's been a lot of criticism here, but again, like Lisa said, we weren't there. We don't know, and tough to armchair quarterback this one. All right. Let's move into the I'm offended segments. Anti-gun group starts hashtag downloadable death campaign that's being hijacked by pro-gun activists, which, I'm kind of always down with. They did the wear orange thing. They said they're going to wear orange to end gun violence, and hunters and firearms enthusiasts have been like, well, we've been wearing orange for 100 years minimum. And,
they picked a great color, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm like, how about chartreuse? No one really wears chartreuse anymore. So this is another one. Now, downloadable death, we're taking this one over. And, I don't know. First off, Lisa, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on 3D printed guns? And what do you think of the downloadable death hashtag?
I agree with the person who said it's really expensive. I know she put on there maybe $25 or something. That's just, but it's not. And you can't just buy something cheap and expect it to work. You're trying to create a firearm with plastic. I think that it's hilarious that she's using downloadable death. And then they start talking about, wasn't she on Who's the Boss?
Yeah, Alyssa Milano, yes.
And then they say, well, that was downloadable death, downloading her. It's hilarious. You've really got to watch, what you say and how you promote things if you're going to be against it, because it could be turned against you. And it's kind of funny to watch it.
Yeah, they're failing the hashtag in the meme game for sure. Ken?
I'm really saddened by this because Alyssa Milano is one of my passes from my wife.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's just totally blowing it for me. It's not going to work out now. I'm going to have to find a new person. Yeah, Alyssa has totally blown it for me. This thing is way out of control. Yeah, there's no takey backsies on the internet.
No.
Once it's out there, it's out there. You can't get it back. These plans are out there. What are we arguing about here? You can 3D print a knife and take it onto a plane. You can do that all the time. You could do that forever. And these guns work sometimes. I was just on a range for a carbine class, and one of the guys had a polymer lower for his rifle, and once it heated up, it was pretty much useless. Why are we worrying about this? There's so many other things in the world for us to worry about and picket about and complain about. And, I want our educational system to work a lot better than it does. Can Alyssa Milano talk about that so she can be back on my list?
Right. I don't know. Yeah. Downloadable death. I mean, if you're going to make a hashtag that's supposed to make us upset or hurt our feelings or something, why don't you make one that's not the coolest hashtag I've ever heard?
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's going to be on a t-shirt. That's awesome.
Yes, it is.
I'm totally going to wear it.
It's going to have Gundamentalist on one side and downloadable death on the other.
That's right.
Oh, Alyssa. That's awful. All right. So let's move into our full auto news segment. This is just stuff that the real media won't talk about. Other crazy stuff. We all pick one. Ken, why don't you start us off and tell us what your story's about?
Well, yeah, this one was interesting. This dude went on a streak of hitting national parks and getting in trouble through all of them. He landed in the Glacier National Park and decided he was going to get into it with a bison. And you're watching the video, and he's taunting this bison. And I really, really was kind of hoping the bison was a little bit more pissed off than he was, and actually took care of the problem for us taxpayers. And but now he's going to court, and we're going to end up paying for it. The guy is drunk in every national park he's gone to. He's been in trouble in several, and that's how they picked him up. Finally, he got in trouble at a restaurant at another national park, and they said, yeah, we think we got your guy. They picked him up. So yeah, I really wish the Buffalo had won.
It's so crazy. Like he's like doing the wrestling move, the WWE wrestling move, like where he's trying to pump himself up. And I can't believe the bison didn't gore him. This guy is an idiot. Just standing out in the open, no point of egress, no way to get away from the situation if it does decide to charge him. He's a dummy. Lisa, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was funny to watch, especially when the woman was like, "Oh, that bison's getting mad."
Yep, I know.
I was just waiting. I was so excited to see what that bison was going to do, but it didn't charge him, so he lucked out.
Yeah, totally agree. He definitely did. Lisa, what was your story?
Mine was California man shoots dog for killing a cat. I guess he gets mad at the dog for killing a cat. They later said they didn't even know if it was his dog or not, but he shoots into the neighbor's house. I mean, come on, what are we doing here? You're obviously close to another house and you're shooting your dog, and it wasn't just once, it was several times that he's shooting off with this firearm.
Oh, and during a search of his room, deputies found 2 handguns, 2 rifles, and large amounts of methamphetamine, heroin, and marijuana. I mean, if you're going to kill your
he was
dog.
pretty smart, wasn't he? He had all this stuff. Wasn't he like a felon or something? And he's got all this stuff hidden, and then he shoots a dog and gets caught with all of it.
I know. Like, what? Oh, never ends. So I'll also do a dog story. Florida man shoots dog that bit him. So this is his buddy's dog. They were in the house. The dog bites him, latches on. The guy has the dog on his arm, walks to the bedroom, gets the gun case, opens the gun case, shoots the dog. And obviously not charged with anything because this, I mean, it's going to be very unlikely that he gets charged with anything because I think this consists of, it meets all the requirements that you need to defend yourself. But kind of interesting that he took that dog for such a ride. And apparently the ride didn't end well. What's going on?
Was it lockjaw? I mean, how do you walk around with the dog on your arm?
Yeah, kind of crazy. I don't know exactly what happened, but yeah, apparently the animals are going wild this week. And did you guys see? I mean, we might as well just do one more. Did you guys see the really, really drunk guy who decides to go on a beer run and takes an alligator with him?
Yes. Yeah. And that is such a comedy waiting to happen. Somebody needs to do that. That's like a weed and road trip movie waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And he's just holding it like a football. He's just walking around with the alligator and the tail's dragging along behind him. Yeah.
I love it. And then in the news, they're like, how did you even get the alligator? He's like, man, I don't even know. I don't remember anything about it. Oh, man. So,
that should be a movie, man. I can see it.
I totally agree. Just how he came to have the alligator and the love story after he found it. Ridiculous. All right. That'll do it for tonight. But before we go, guys, I want to hear a little bit about what you're up to. Lisa, what have you shot some competition lately? What have you been up to?
Oh, absolutely. I have another one coming up next month, and I'm going to do some training with Mike Seeklander September the 1st. So that's awesome. I'm really excited to do some pistol training. I also am currently a lead practitioner for the clay hunt. Nice. I don't know if you know what clay hunt is. It's not a clay hunt, unfortunately, which sounds really cool. I don't know the competition, but he was an Iraqi and Afghanistan veteran who was constantly helping people. He was shot himself. Then he went to Haiti. He went to Chile, and he's helping all of these people, but he didn't help himself. So he did end up committing suicide. So we are going to be in West Plains. If you're in this area on the 16th, August 16th from 1 to 4, definitely come out. We're going to have a live band, and we're just going to be celebrating veterans that day. So should be fun. Very cool. And guys, if you're out there and if you feel like you can't go on, there are resources available to you. Call 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK, or you can even text 741-741. Lisa, where can people find you online? You can find me at lisa.edwards0024. Sorry. Nice. It was that's on Instagram. It was like, or Lisa Edwards on Facebook. 007, but you were like the 24th of them. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. I might change it to 007. That's fun. I love it. Lisa, thanks for being here. It's always a pleasure. Thank you. Ken, where can people find you and what have you been up to? Well, I've been taking classes, teaching classes, spending some time on the range. You recently did an interview with Fred's buddy. What is her name? Karen Hunter. Karen Hunter. Yes. Karen Hunter. I was on the range with Fred and Karen. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I heard that. Force Options USA or US, right?
And Karen, yes, and Karen's going to kill me for, I can never remember her Instagram name. That's what my problem is.
KL Hunter, I believe.
That's what it is. Yeah. KL Hunter. Yeah. So spent some time on the range with them, and it was a lot of fun, getting to shoot right. I don't get to spend a whole lot of time behind my rifle. So it was good to get the reps in, and Fred and Karen did a fantastic job. And they can find me all over Athlon Outdoors. If you're interested in magazines, I know everybody goes print is dead. Well, print isn't dead. It's just getting better for us. So look for us. We've got magazines: Ballistic Magazine, Tactical Life Magazine, Personal Defense World Magazine, Combat Handgun. We've got magazines all over the newsstand. And check us out online at Personal Defense World. We've got tacticallife.com, ballistic.com. You can find us there, and you can find me on Instagram at crosstac, KROSSTAC.
All right. I love it. And the newest episode of Ballistic is awesome. Pat McNamara on the cover. We recently had him on We Like Shooting. Great guy, and a really good episode or issue of the magazine as well.
Thanks, man. We're trying really hard, and that is one of my personal favorites. I work on that magazine. That is my baby, and I'm trying to make it better every issue.
It's beautiful, man. I love it. Thanks so much for being here, Ken.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Now, guys, go check out our advertisers, Patriot Patch Company. That's patriotpatch.co, and also Manticore Arms, manticorearms.com. Coupon code TWG10 gets you 10% off your entire order. Go check them out. Thank you to Kenny Ortega for covering for me last week. He is the producer of This Week in Guns, and it is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. Guys, we're going to see you next week.
Jamming out.
I don't know how he's not tired of the music. How does he keep doing that?
I don't know. I love it. That's awesome.